Zehra Kazim is a musician and the only sagar veena player in the world. Sagar veena is a stringed instrument which was created by her father in 1971. She has performed in Pakistan and internationally and has achieved great appreciation and critical appraisal for the instrument. Let's hear from her about her early life and how she developed interest in music.
I was born in Lahore and I belong to a family of lawyers. As a child, I was exposed to music. My mother used to sing beautifully. My father was very interested in all kinds of music, and he was a great admirer of classical music and semi-classical music. When I was about 13 plus, I started taking lessons in sitar, and because I wanted to do instrumental music. And by 14, my father had kept somebody who would come at home and teach us. His name was Ustad Nisar Hussain Khan. So he was to teach all of us. This basic training started at home around 1968, when I was about 4.
When was sagar veena created?
In 1970, my father started working on the sagar veena, on the instrument.
Yes,
and then it was virtually a whole-time job with him. So, of learning, of trying out the sound. So, there are about 4 to 5 prototypes of the sagar veena.
Right.
And the first one was a converted instrument, like a sitar. It was not a sitar, but it was a surbahar, and it was converted into a veena.
Right.
So a veena is a generic name for stringed instruments, and veena. This was like in the sitar, you have frets which indicate the notes. So this was without the frets, and it was played with a piece of glass.
Right.
So there's also a predecessor of the sagar veena. It is called Vichitra veena.
Yes.
And this was also invented around the beginning of the 20th century. It was invented by a musician whose name was Ustad Abdul Aziz Khan, and he was a sarangi player. So he invented the Vichitra veena.
Right.
So the sagar veena is also played in the same way with now not with a piece of glass, but with a piece of brass. Okay. And it is plucked in the same way with mizrabs, which are plectrums, for plucking the strings.
Right, ma'am.
So basically, the veena journey started on a converted surbahar. And that is how my father kept on improving the sound of the veena by making new designs, by trying out different designs other than that converted surbahar, which I started playing. So the first prototype of the sagar veena was made in 1970 August.
Right.
1970 August, because it was a design which was conceived by my father. As you know, his name is Raza Kazim.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is the first time the sagar veena, the first design of the sagar veena was made, and it takes quite a long time because it was all handcrafted. Yes. So it takes about 4 or 5 months for an instrument to be made, to come into its final form.
Right.
So it took about that amount of time for the first sagar veena to be made. So my father is not a musician, as you know. He's a lawyer by profession, and he's a thinker. He just thought about what should be the design of the instrument, and he read up on acoustics. He read up on the designs of how to make an instrument more resonant. But basically, the sitar or the conventional instruments like the sarod, they have resonance, but it is very, very limited. He wanted to have an instrument which was resonant in all its, range of musical sound.
Right.
So for that, he kept on changing and improving the designs of the sagar veena. It was the name of sagar veena was given by my first teacher, as I told you, who used to come to our house. His name was Ustad Nisar Hussain Khan.
Okay.
And he used to teach us sitar and vocal music. And also tabla, like in the initial stages, the teachers knew how to teach all the things. But later on, of course, you need specialists to teach a special instrument or vocal music or a tabla. So in the initial period, he used to teach everything. So he named it sagar veena.
Can you tell us about your professional journey as a musician?
Yes, certainly. Actually, then my father, in 1971, he sent me to England. Because we could not go to India at that time, where the war had been recently fought and Bangladesh was made. So my father sent me to England to learn from a lady who was the head of the India department at School of Oriental and African Studies. My father had met her on one of his visits, so she had agreed to teach me through vocal music. So she did not know how to play the veena, but she said that in our music, in our classical tradition, we do learn from vocal teachers, and we basically, whatever they teach, we try to take it out on an instrument. So whatever the instrument may be, it can be any of the classical instruments. So that method is already there of learning music. Right. So I went up to her, and my father sent the instrument, the sagar veena, along with me to England, and he hired a place for me to stay, and I used to take my instrument to her flat, and she tried to teach me, but unfortunately, I realized that she was a very busy lady. So she did not have the time to give me regular lessons. So unfortunately, I could not actually learn from her. Right. Yes. That was a more or less an unsuccessful attempt to learn. Over there, I met Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, who was a sarod, who played the sarod. He had a concert in London, and I went to see him and heard his concert, and I requested him to listen to the sagar veena. So I took the sagar veena to him in his hotel, and he heard it, and he said, "Why don't you come to my school in America?" He had a school of music in America, in California. So I said, let me ask my father. So my father agreed to it. And then I went in the next couple of months to America, to California, to learn from Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab.
Right.
And my father sent not just one veena, he sent two veenas, because he had already started working, try to improve the sagar veena sound. And so he had made the second version of the sagar veena by that time. So he sent that all from Lahore to England, and I took both of them to America, to California. My mother was accompanying me at that time in 1972.
Right.
I was just 18 at that time.
Right.
So over there he had a whole school of music where you could learn vocal, tabla, instrumental, everything. And basically it comprised of Americans who, and there were just a few, of course the teachers were all Indians, and there were some Indian students also, but very few.
Right.
And in a strength of 150, there were just about 4 or 5 Indian students.
Right.
The rest were all Americans. So they had their own way of learning. They had the written method, they had already, because they were all musicians who had learned Western music, and they wanted to now learn Indian classical music. So they had that written tradition, and they would immediately write down what the teacher was teaching them. Ali Akbar Khan Sahab was teaching them. And I did not have that facility. So for me, just to pick up something within 2 hours was extremely difficult, and there was a lot of it. So this was going to be a failed experiment to learn the sagar veena. But once or twice he invited me to his place, and I kept one veena at his house, because these class sessions were not working out to learn the veena. So I went in, to his house and have individual lessons from him. But they were also in 6 months. I stayed there for 6 months, and in those 6 months, I hardly had 3 or 4 lessons from him, and they were very initial lessons. So that also, this money. Literally, was guzzling. This money was being guzzled, and there was no result was coming out of it. So I just thought that I can't go on doing this endlessly. I came back to Pakistan.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes.
So I had to, and it was a very demoralizing thing, because these were great people, great musicians, but unfortunately I could not learn from them.
Yes.
I could not learn the sagar veena from them. So I came back to Lahore. And I just, whatever I knew, I kept practicing. Whatever I learned, whatever little I picked up in America at the LA College of Music, I kept on practicing that. And of course, I was without a teacher for at least a year and a half. I did not have any teacher.
Yes.
So, and of course, my father kept on working on the instrument. He again but he had not made any instrument at that time, but he was trying to think. All his work is based on the thinking process on his thought process.
Yes.
And he has a very disciplined mind to think and to, before he starts experimenting, he gives his best shot to figure out what the next steps he should experiment with.
Yes, ma'am.
So then in 1974, I found my actual teacher, Ustad Sharif Khan Sahab, through a friend of ours. Her name was Samina Najam Hussain Sayyed. Unfortunately, she died. And she was the one who introduced us to Ustad Sharif Khan Sahab, who was also a veena player and a sitar player, a very accomplished sitar and veena player. So he decided to come and teach me. And that is actually when my formal training on the veena started.
Right.
The real training started. So it was a very, very intensive learning from on a daily basis. He used to come here and teach me for 6 days a week on 3 hours every day. So it was just practical learning from him. So that lasted for about a year and a half or so, less than that. But unfortunately, at that stage, I think I could not take, it required a hell of a lot of stamina. I was nearly 20 at that time, and I could not just be able to bear that strenuous and very rigorous training of Indian music on the veena. And I tried my best, but I told my father that that's it. Otherwise, I might just, lose my head or something, because I just can't keep pace with what he's teaching me.
Yes.
So then my formal training, my father obviously could not push me into it. Although now, in retrospect, I wish I had, somehow gone on learning from him, because then what happened was, then within 2 months I got, decided, there was a marriage in the offing, and then by next year March I was married.
Yes.
So then for 2.5 years after my marriage, I lived in Islamabad, and of course for those 2.5 years there was no practice, there was no playing, nothing. And my father had also moved to England for a year and a half during that period. So then my husband was post-transferred back to Lahore, and we moved back to Lahore. And at that time, I already had my first son, Ali Noor. And although my teacher really wanted me to learn from him, but it was just not possible to take any further lessons. So that was that about my training ended at that time. Or, that formal training of music just ended.
Yes.
But anyway, I went on playing on my own, and of course I loved the sound of the instrument even when it was at its first stage. And it was a very important means of communication with myself. And I found a lot of self-expression in those sounds that were of the sagar veena. And although according to my father, they were very crude sounds, and that's why he worked to improve them, to refine. Since coming back to Lahore, my father was again working on another model of the sagar veena, so I helped him develop it. Of course, there was an instrument maker who used to make these instruments, but the design my father used to think about and work on, and then the design would change. And it was a fact that the sound of the sagar veena kept on improving in every model. So, and of course, it facilitated my playing also, and it facilitated whatever I played as what was music for me, for my own self-expression. It facilitated that. I have a few recordings of that also, way back in 74, 75, I think. We used to record on the cassette. So basically, what I would say, Ifrah, that it was a very open-ended learning,
Yes.
and a very many-sided learning, because I was not only playing the instrument, I was listening to the ideas about music, about life, about the connection of music with life from my father.
Right.
So although apparently he was working on the instrument and I was just standing there or sitting trying to check out the sound of the instrument, because one part of the instrument he did himself. It was the most crucial part, and sometimes when we can show, in a video that what that part is and why is it crucial.
Yes.
So that part no instrument maker worked on. He worked on it himself.
Right.
And he tried to discover what was the basis on which those sounds, the way they were transmitted into the instrument, they produce those musical resonances,
Yes.
that musicality. So that is what his work is about on the sagar veena, and why this particular design of sagar veena.
Right.
So basically, my learning became very open-ended and not in a structure. It became very unstructured, and it was also determined by how much time or how much concentration I would have to play the instrument. It was the rigorous part of learning, etc., had just gone. That was out of my life.
Right.
But anyways, maybe for creative work, you do need to be. You can't have very fixed set ideas to do in a creative ongoing work. You have to be flexible in your mind. You have to do away with certain forms. And I did away with the form of classical music. I basically now only play the non-rhythmic part. The first part, as you would recall, that in a classical piece of music, the first part is without any tabla or a rhythmic accompaniment. So that part, which is called alap in classical music, that is the part which I now basically play on the sagar veena. I do not play the rhythmic parts of the music. Although I learned the rhythmic parts, and in the beginning, they were a part of the performance or a piece of sagar veena, the music on the sagar veena. But now I do not use the tabla at all. So we have also given up on the existing Indian classical forms of music.
Right.
So, of course, the instrument, as you know, in the Coke Studio pieces of sagar veena, one is not with the tabla, but the first one is. So it's not that the veena you can't play the tabla pieces on the veena. You can, but the sound and the musicality gets enhanced when it is not with accompaniment.
When was your first formal performance playing sagar veena?
My first performance was on the Pakistan television. It was at PTV. There was my Farooq Bashir Saab, who's also music producer, has been a music producer all his life for the Pakistan television. So he was also the student of my teacher, Ustad Sharif Khan Saab. So he wanted me to play the sagar veena on the television. So it is a 3-minute piece and it is on YouTube. It's called Bilas Khani Todi.
Right, ma'am.
So, of course, and this was, I think, way back in 1983, if I remember. I don't play for very long. My maximum, piece on Sagar Veena lasts about 10 to 12 minutes, not more than that.
How has your musical journey changed with time?
So now that the world has changed completely with the internet coming and everything is online, the requirements of music have changed. The way of listening has changed. The parameters of satisfaction or enjoyment or consumption have changed as far as music is concerned. I do feel that the way I've been doing it is not going. It's going to remain my own personal story. I don't think I will be able to share it with the world. But on the other hand, I feel that I think these times also allow people to have their own particular niche, and I do not see any obstacle in sharing my own niche with people in this world. I feel that there are lots and lots of people, and it surprises me at times that people whom I do not know and they don't necessarily have to belong to the subcontinent, the way they relate to the sounds of the instrument, the way they relate to the music, and that is good enough for me to share it with them. So what I'm doing, Ifrah, is that I'm still frankly grappling with how to play it best. I can play what I know already, but I'm not happy with that. I want to play something that I can say I'm creating right now as I speak or in the future. So I would like to reach at least that level where it becomes, as it was in the past for me, a means of communication with myself. And I'm very confident that once I can feel that I'm communicating with the sounds of the sagar veena and the music, I'm confident that people will also feel the same about the sounds of the sagar veena or the music of the sagar veena. So I am working in that direction. But the last recording that was on YouTube was 2017 November. There's a dream journey. It's a group. It's a music forum which is on YouTube. It's called The Dream Journey. So they came and recorded 2 pieces of the sagar veena. So they are on the YouTube, and the kind of comments people pass and what they think about it and how it stimulates them is very, very encouraging. So I would like to continue with it. I would like to continue on that. With that feeling that it's something that communicates with myself, and now I feel confident that it will communicate with others. So I'm somewhere in the middle right now in trying to figure it out.
The times are changing, and so is the genre of music which is consumed nowadays. And actually, the genre of every sort of art is being changed to meet the needs of current trends. So, what is your message for aspiring artists? What would you suggest? Should they be mindful of current trends, or should they remain true to themselves?
It's very, very important to feel that the technology is not overtaking you. The technology is assisting you, is facilitating you. Even if it is for the purpose of making money, for sustenance, even then, I think you do need to at least keep that perspective in your own mind, that technology is there to help you. But if you see, there are also trends in this online life that has come up. There are certain trends that people follow. They do not question those trends. They do not question those trends. They just follow them. And by the way, I think, yes, just a couple of days ago, what has happened, I mean, this news about that actor who committed suicide, I think it is the biggest alarm. Sushant, that is the biggest alarm that has rung about the internet and also about the trends, less about the internet, but more about the trends. That everybody thinks that Bollywood is the only is what everybody has to aspire to and reach. And just look what has happened. A brilliant mind, a creative person who, because how he got trampled by the trend. So this is something we really need to be wary of. We have to really, and especially with this corona, the reality of corona, I think we really need to work on our own selves to keep our heads screwed on. What do we, even if we have to communicate, we should have a purpose to communicate. As something tangible, which is tangible for us, as I was telling Ifrah, I have to feel something which communicates with my own self. Only that will communicate with others. You can take anything, whether it is writing, whether it is acting. If it doesn't communicate with self, it does not communicate with others. And even if they're consuming those 2-3 minutes of whatever you are doing, writing or reading or acting or singing or playing, they know, at the back of their minds, they know that it is not genuine, authentic stuff. And that is what one should be wary of. I find that even in writing.
Reflecting on your life journey, what is your message for other women and girls?
Certainly, I think that number one, a lot of girls and women, if you see, at least globally, a lot of women and girls are playing and are learning so fast that, as in fact, when I read your profile, I realized that there's such a huge gap between our generation and your generation, that the learning is so fast, mashallah, with you people. Yes. The girls that are playing, they pick up so fast and they're so good. It's like a language for them, which we took a long time to learn, and they're able to communicate so well. But yes, I do feel the only message that I have is that you must keep your music connected with the rest of your life. It can only reflect best when it is connected with the rest of your life. Don't try and do it like we do academics. Just in a shell or like in a cocoon. Do music in a completely open and like life encompassing way, not in a way in which you are just learning the craft.
Right.
It's not, craft is important, but your self-expression and your ability to express your ideas, it always keeps improving, but you must keep that connection while you are playing, while you are learning with yourself. It has to remain a means of self-expression for you.
Right.
Music is a difficult thing to learn, but you must keep that connection with yourself while you are learning with that music. And of course, you can perform. There's so many opportunities. That is not an issue. But don't do it just to perform, just to get accomplished. Do it because your heart tells you to do it. Your heart gets satisfaction from doing it. Your heart gets satisfaction from going through the rigors of learning it. That is what's important, and that's how you will develop the natural language of music. You will not be dependent on certain techniques or certain forms of music. You will play what you feel like playing.
Thank you, Noor Zehra Kazim, a musician and the only sagar veena player in the world.